Alright folks, welcome back to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. This series is dedicated to helping Bannerlord players improve their field command through the use of advanced tactics. This series is part of our Freestyle series, some of our Experts series, where we're going to use a compilation of different tactics on the battlefield, and most of these battles are shot live, and I've just added this little primer to the start of the battles. So you see they're sieging Varcheg up there in the north. I continue to have these problems with especially Khuzait is making inroads into my frontiers up there, and we have, it looks like, Southern Empire. There's Western Empire down here as well. This is where both the Southern and Western Empire sort of converge. Both of their frontiers sort of converge, and so I'm not surprised to see both of them sort of fighting in this area. And they have another huge Western Empire army moving this way. Generally, I prefer to fight these armies in detail. Like if one of them will come to Sinopa here, we'll take care of business first with them, and then... Okay, they are camped out here at this castle. So this is happening also more and more as I get very late game in my campaign. I've got basically two armies that look like they're waiting for a bite at the apple here of this keep. I mean, it's probably almost 3,000, so I'll need the garrison probably to help just to be outnumbered 2 to 1. But let's take a look to see what's happening here. Sometimes you can back away if it looks too unfavorable. Okay, with the garrison 2100 versus 3600, we're going to give this a go. We're going to try some freestyle tactics. 2100 versus 3600. That's within fair ease of us winning in this kind of battle. And they've given us a nice setup here. We're kind of up on a hill. The enemy's sort of positioned rather vulnerably in the bottom of the valley here, so we're going to use this elevation with archers. And as usual, we're going to do at least a flanking attack and probably a combination of firepower here to defeat this very large force. So those who are not familiar with the channel, I run 2 different archer divisions, 2 different infantry divisions, 2 different cavalry divisions, a horse archer division, and then my 8th Corps, which is elite units. And the enemy looks fairly static, so they're not moving. You can hold down the Alt when you're using a PC to play this game, and you can get a pretty good idea whether or not the enemy's coming in at you or not. They've got it looks like they have horse archers here that will send in some cavalry to sort of discourage. There's a huge heavy cavalry wing on our right flank that we'll have to deal with. Let's try to fly in here and push some of their horse archers out. But meanwhile, we're going to get our troops assembled up on the side of this hill, and then with some flanking action, hopefully surround and drown the main enemy force. First, we got to deal with this heavy cavalry, though. This is a large wave. Most of my archers now are in position where I want them to be up on the hill, and they can shoot arrows into the backs of these heavy cavalry as they attack us. Right? So we're gonna effectively combine firepower here. Right? We're gonna suffer some losses. These are heavy cavalry charging right into our troops, but our forces are sort of densely packed in here, and we should be able to deal the enemy a pretty savage blow. Like that. Love the slow motion beheadings. If you're not familiar with it, that's just a mod I added about a month ago. I think it adds a lot of appropriate ambiance to such a violent game. So we're going to string out the 4th infantry on the left flank here. I'm also going to move my 1st infantry down there. I'm kind of doing this despite the fact that there's all these horse archers and cavalry, sort of hampering us from behind. Anytime you're outnumbered like this, the reality is that the enemy's going to have more of basically all the troops, right? Like they have more infantry than us, they have more archers, they have more horse archers, they have more cavalry. The key, what we're doing here is we're focusing our firepower. Right? The enemy is kind of attacking with the cavalry wave as well as the horse archers, but their infantry is holding back here. And frankly, that's a failing strategy. Part of that's the AI. But sometimes I've seen players play like this when they make their own video. You don't want to send in your cavalry and your horse archers without supporting troops, folks. When we attack, you'll see we attack with multiple units at once, and that's one of the keys to battle, of course. As a subscriber mentioned, Napoleon's not going to send in his infantry without cavalry support. artillery support, you know, or vice versa. They're always going to have multiple prongs. We've got these different army groups, and so we're going to use them, right? We're not going to just send in our cavalry and horse archers like they're doing here. And what that's doing is it's relieving us of their advantage in numbers, right? They have roughly twice our troops, but if they only attack with half of them at the time, we're effectively fighting the army in detail. Again, that's a term that refers to fighting your enemy, usually whole army groups, or usually whole army groups, you know, at one at a time, and that's optimal, of course, if you're the attacker. Now, if you're the attacker in this case, as the AI is doing, and you're intentionally fighting with half of your army at a time, you're really doing yourself a disfavor and giving the enemy an advantage. And the death screen, you know, all green up in the upper right corner, almost all green, demonstrates why their tactics here is a poor tactic. So we're going to stretch the 6th Corps. Those are elite skirmishers, and the 8th Corps out on the far right flank. What I'm going to be starting to do here is create effectively a C formation or a V formation around the enemy. Their main vanguard of probably, yeah, it's about 330, 350 men there. You know, those are elite units, legionnaires, etc. They're tough troops, but they're acting like dipshits, right? They're going to sit statically while we shoot them full of arrows and we surround their force. And it's not going to matter that they outnumber us once they feel the pain of our tactical approach here. So I've got a cavalry line here in front. Their main job is to absorb arrows, right? The enemy's shooting at our troops. We want this very heavy cavalry out front here. It also slows down cavalry charges, right? If they're charging from the front especially, they're going to run into this cavalry, and they're going to have difficulty getting to us. Right? So we're going to slowly start moving this troop up. You can think of it like I've used this reference a lot, like a lineman in football. These are our blockers, right? We're behind here, Tom Brady style, or choose your quarterback, and we're going to start to surround this enemy force here. So 1st Corps, 4th Corps on the left wing. The enemy's already regrouping. They're not routing, folks. There's a big difference. Basically, the artificial intelligence will regroup their forces, pull them back, and get reinforcements. But I've got this cavalry here. We're going to send them right fucking through there. Fuck you trying to run. Make them pay. And look at, they're getting just spiked as they fly back to their reinforcements. To finish that point, the artificial intelligence gives you reinforcements in big battles like this when your forces are reduced by about a third. So we had killed enough of their cavalry, enough of their infantry that they got reinforcements, and very typically the artificial intelligence will pull their troops back to those reinforcements, which is an appropriate strategy, right? They're trying to make sure their forces aren't divided. These guys are divided, though. For whatever reason, this small little group of infantry here, these guys are totally lost. And anytime you've got an enemy that's divided like this, seek and destroy. Right? We're going to aggressively destroy this fucking group. We're opening fire here, and in we go. Right? We're going to move in the 6th and 8th, although they're already retreating. It's like they realized mid-approach there they were making a bad decision. You know, but again, it cost them like 30 or 40 more guys. Right? Our elite skirmishers are hammering them. When they run, of course, most of the time, when they regroup like that, a lot of the time their back is to you. And so they're just getting shot in the back with arrows. Right? There were Civil War battles where incompetent generals put their troops in a bad position and then basically ordered them to rout. He didn't say retreat, he said to rout. I can't remember this idiot's name, but there's actually a Senate investigation. Oh shit, fuck you. This guy took a fucking nasty swing at me. There's actually an investigation because he was so incompetent. He told his troops to rout instead of retreat, and there's a huge difference, right? You'll hear me say it's a tactical or a feigned retreat. That means that you're still facing your opponent. It's an ordered retreat, right? As we have some more crossfire here. Our archers are dealing nasty damage, of course, because they're up elevated like that. So we're getting kills here just sort of passively as the enemy sits over there, basically waiting for the slaughter here. Our archers are still shooting. You know, we have like 50 battalion champs here. We have other high-level archers. So the enemy's getting greatly weakened before we even come to major blows here. But the blows are coming, right? I'm shifting everything over to the right here. because again, we're going to provide a circling attack on this enemy here. When they get attacked by us, it's going to be with 4, 5, 6 units at the same time. I've got cavalry on my right flank, again, sort of providing a block, but we'll be using them to charge as well, right? They'll be part of the combined attack. Your cavalry, of course, is your most mobile units, so the best way to use them in a situation like this, if you don't need them for defense, is to fucking attack the enemy from behind, right? So we're going to be coming in with infantry, our elite units, knock a few of these skirmishing cavalry out of here. We're going to be coming in with elite units, and then we will hammer the enemy on the other side with cavalry to really provide the pain. So you see I'm shoving our cavalry way out into the distance there. The enemy, again, it looks like they're regrouping. They just took such a beating by being down in this valley that they probably lost 400 or 500 troops already. Still, I think their total was like 3,700 in this battle, right? So this battle is far from over. We're going to have a couple collapsing attacks here. And importantly and beneficially for the enemy, at this stage, we're starting to run low on ammunition, right? Your archers do have a limit to how many arrows they can fire. You can see them just raining death still. We're still getting kills. But at this stage, I see a lot of archers standing there with their sword. And if they're standing there with their sword, unless you told them to hold fire, well, those guys are out of arrows. Alright, so we're going to move up our 6th and 8th Corps here. Again, there's this sort of small infantry group attacking. Maybe it's 80 to 100 infantry. So we're going to do a combined charge of the 6th, 8th, and 3rd Cavalry and just steamroll this small group. Anytime your enemy's in a small mass like this, I mean, I guess I would call it a medium-sized mass where they're sort of separated from their main vanguard. Seek, destroy, chase them all down. I've got cavalry that are cycle charging through these guys, right? Cycle charging is basically just F1, F3. The artificial intelligence does a decent job with F1, F3 with cavalry in this situation where they just run back and forth, spearing. I'm killing my own guy. Spearing as many guys as they can. And then once this group is pretty much wiped out, we're going to regroup again. I'm getting way extended from my main force here, so we're going to actually start forcing guys back. Even if you're just rolling through the enemy like that, you don't want to just keep going because it feels good, because you're winning, because you're getting kills. I didn't see quite how many that was, but it seemed like they had at least 300 or 400 more reinforcements piled up. Again, we were only attacking with the 6th, 8th, and 3rd, so that's maybe 120 guys or 100 guys, right? If we try attacking 350, 400 troops with 100 guys, we're in deep shit. Again, what we're not going to do is what the enemy's been doing part of this battle, is where they're attacking with bits and pieces of it, 80 cavalry over here, 120 infantry over there. We're going to come in with our 250, 300 all at the same time and just give them a massive slug. Again, we're just sort of cleaning up some of this spare cavalry that they have up, sort of pursuing our archers here. Our whole tactical approach to most battles is to make sure that our archers and skirmishers are relatively unmolested, right? You're always going to have cavalry attacks and horse archers attacking them, but it's a matter of numbers, right? If you're facing 150 Khuzait horse archers, that is the priority, not the enemy infantry, not their archers. But in this case, if it's 30 horse archers and they have 30 or 40 heavily mounted units, you just you continue with your business as usual, right? Your archers can take these guys down. 30, 40 heavy cavalry is not nearly the threat that the main force is offering here. Again, they're sort of in a big defensive ball down there. The enemy is really taking a sort of passive, entrenched approach to this battle. To me, that's virtually always a losing battle unless they're using combined attacks, right? If they had their cavalry on both sides here, sort of flanking and waiting for us to attack and then counter-punching, they might have some chance of winning this battle, but they're not going to just by sitting back, sending their cavalry in to die, and then waiting. It's almost 400. There is 400 there. Those 400 guys are now relatively unsupported because most of their cavalry is now shot off their horses, dead, whatever it is, right? And so that group, they're like a bait ball of fish. If you've ever seen the Nature Channel, they basically just look like a whole bunch of anchovies just waiting to be eaten by, the more intelligent mammals. And I think you can already tell in this battle who the more intelligent mammal is. That's over 400, 430, 440. So I'm doing this fast. I do have some videos where I show these movements slower. I can explain it briefly here in slow-mo, but what I've done is I've stretched out my units, again forming sort of a C shape around these units. I've got heavy cavalry right in the front there. Their main job is to absorb arrows and to shield our troops as we move into position here. When you move into position, your troops are vulnerable, they're running. Archers especially are very vulnerable. You want to get your armed units like those cavalry out in front so that we can push forward here without taking serious damage from their projectile units, right? I see bolts flying in from them, they're throwing javelins. I've got my 1st Infantry right to my left there in shield wall. They're going to be our main vanguard for this assault. The 8th and the 6th, you can see I'm stretching far out. The enemy's freaking out. Let's see if they charge. I'm stretching the 6th and 8th far out on the enemy's left flank. That's our right flank. And then I have archers on both wings as well. And what we're going to try to do here is send cavalry way off into the distance. That's horse archers. We're going to send they're not very many. It's 6, 8. We have like 30 total cavalry at this stage. And I just took a shot. And we're sending them off into the different corners of all the way of the map, basically, because we're going to use them to encircle the enemy here. Their archers are starting to fan out, right? Actually, they kind of start looking like they want to charge. They might be out of ammo too, so we're going to send in the 1st, 6th, 8th, and bring the cavalry back. And when the cavalry gets close, they will charge. In we fly, right? This is where I can do some good axe work. My character is not actually very high spec and leadership skill. He's mostly spec'd out to be a destructive force on the battlefield, right? He's 300 plus athletics, two-handed, and almost 300 in throwing. You're gonna wade in like this, right? You need good armor. I got that shield on my back that's taken a lot of hits for me, but you got to keep moving, right? I got into the thick of it there. You see me just kind of fly to safety. Let your infantry do their job. We took more losses than I wanted to see there, but that's still fine. We still have a lot of our elite troops, and again, one of the keys to battles at this stage is that the enemy is down to tier 4 troops. They don't have their elite troops anymore. They've all been destroyed. They're sending in a decent little cavalry wave here, but these guys are fodder for our axe. I know their enemy vanguard is chasing behind here, but I've got a few seconds, right? We can decimate the remnants of that 3rd wave. And before we turn to bear on the rest of their force. A lot of these are archers. We want to aggressively attack in this situation. So I just sent our units straight into the enemy mass. Literally sent them, like their formations, through their formations to run right up in here and encircle the enemy. Don't give them any rest. One of the reasons you don't want to give them any rest is see their archers trying to set up. You don't want to have their archers have time, or their javelin throwers have time to sort of form a line of projectiles. So these guys trying to shoot. You don't want them to shoot, right? As long as these guys are in melee, that's a huge win for us. That alone, right? Again, continuing to push forward. This is kind of a bull rush, and the enemy's coming at us, right? We're definitely vulnerable because we're still seriously outnumbered. A lot of our troops are wounded at this stage. A lot of my companions are probably near death. Still, we're much higher level than the enemy, right? And so these are our tier 3 troops. Some of them are tier 2, I think, even at this stage. Mostly tier 3, but they're facing legionnaires and my elite companions. And these archers, I think they're just, this is extraordinarily poor formations. They're trying to stretch them out, but they're trying to stretch them out way too close to us here and just getting cut to pieces. The enemy's done us at least a couple favors in this battle, in which ordinarily might be a pretty hard battle, is really turning into a massacre. Right? They continue to reform here. They're sending in another pathetic cavalry wave. There's almost no order to their attack at this stage. They're just kind of F1, F3 themselves. They're not really regrouping with their archers. They're just sending in these paper cavalry to get torn apart by our infantry. Well, we're happy to accommodate them. Now we are still facing a huge mass, like through the blur of action. I try to keep an eye past it, and they do have a massive line of archers out there that we're going to have to approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to send in the heavy units in the front, right? That's our infantry. We're going to use a block of cavalry here. That cavalry in this case is going to basically provide a shield wall. and we're going to move our units to the flanks. My archers are out of arrows, so my archers will be physically sent into this battle. Let's clean up some of these cavalry in here too. You don't want to make an attack while you got chaos in your backfield, right? Because the enemy has a number of cavalry. Okay, in this case, we're just going to clean it up. I've got units in the front now and shield wall. Right? They have two purposes. Eventually, they're going to be attacking the enemy, but right now, their main purpose is sort of to take the enemy's attention, absorb a lot of these arrows before we make our attack. So their infantry is regrouping. Their archers were up front, which is again another mistake by the enemy. This is like the third or fourth mistake. If this was a real humans, AI, you would say this is not a very experienced player. Right? This is someone who's just started playing recently and is trying to get a grasp on the battlefield. But we're gonna take every advantage of it. All right, so finally their infantry is charging, and this represents a much more major threat. So I've got guys pulling back. We're going to take some losses here. This is like 400 infantry. They might only be tier 3, but if there's 400 of them, well, they can beat the shit out of you. Now I've got these archers. Again, this is the difference between the enemy and us. We're going to use these archers and the rest of our troops in a combined assault here. We sent these archers in on charge. Archers that are out of arrows are no longer archers. They are now infantry. There's Battanian Fiend champs. I see some like Imperial sergeants, Imperial crossbowmen, which have decent melee skills, and we charge into these archers. These low-level archers have awful melee skills, and no armor, but they do some damage at range. So one of the keys to making sure they don't shoot you to pieces is to aggressively charge in like this, even at the risk of losing a lot of troops. The enemy's again trying to reform, but they're doing it right in the face of our troops, and we're much faster. I've got 2-3 banners on any given fight. The banners that your guys carry, you can assign those to the captain leading those groups. I've got usually 2 or 3 banners in every battle where they have plus troop speed. And what that does, that's paramount for victory, because when you're moving around, if the enemy has time to position their men to retreat like they're doing right now and reform, and you can't catch up to them, can't keep up with them, then that's very clearly to their advantage. As they were retreating there, they lost at least 100 guys just trying to get out of there, because even though they're running, and this is no longer, they're full out routing. Again, the difference between regrouping and routing is your enemy just turns their backs to you, and every single guy turns into a total fucking wuss. He's heading for the hills, and that's pretty much it for the battle. Sometimes at the end of a battle like this, the enemy will have a handful of guys that are sort of resolutely fighting it out while the rest of the cowards flee. But there's your victory. Killed a couple of their nobles, right? We only lost 300 troops there, even though we were facing almost 4,000. Oops. Every once in a while this will happen too. The enemy's got some reinforcements that popped in here, and these peasants, evidently, they like BDSM too. They're interested in some pain here, so we're going to provide that to them. I don't know. It's satisfying to me to cut through guys in bathrobes. Maybe that's just the psychopath inside me. I mean, the human animal's a very violent animal, right? That's why we've had everything from gladiator games to the popularity of UFC. We love blood and carnage and people getting their ass kicked. So even though I could just hit the tab button and probably X out of this, we're gonna rout the fucking rest of these peasants, shoot them full of arrows, and teach them to not be so insolent in front of the Jarl. As I finish this out, I'm going to talk more about this series, this expert tactics series. We're going to be doing a lot of freelancing. Freelancing, what I mean by that, that's a military or paramilitary term. It effectively means sort of a planless, relatively chaotic approach to battle. We're not going to pre-plan a lot of these battles. We're not going to know what the battlefield is. We're not going to have an elaborate plan. We're just going to sort of charge into battle, see what the enemy does, and then apply a bunch of different advanced tactics in conjunction with each other, right? We're combining advanced tactics, hence sort of the expert part of it. It's sort of a compilation. This is sort of your term paper for this course, is to take all of these different tricks, all of these different tactical processes that you've learned and then apply it to a larger battle fluently, right? Watching and recognizing what the enemy does, and then everything the enemy does counterpunching, right? So this is the UFC approach, where you have a plan for almost everything the enemy does. They're still sort of resolutely holding out here. Kudos for their resolve, but this is where the term discretion is the better part of valor comes from. Like, these guys should be running. We will happily cut through there. Anyways, finishing that thought, we're going to have this expert tactics series, which is sort of the culmination of all the different things I've been trying to teach and help people with in the series. And these will oftentimes be against much larger troops. I'm not going to be including a lot of videos in this series against like even number troops or where we're slightly outnumbered. We're always going to be significantly outnumbered, where the computer AI, if we ran the auto resolve, would whip our ass. And we're going to use these advanced tactics to simply dismantle the enemy in what I hope is a very valuable series. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate all the subscribers. I appreciate all the comments. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.